Hello and welcome everybody. I hope that you're all having a wonderful almost end of the week. This is basically Practice Friday. My name is Will Zapata here with Apollo Energy, and this is our Beyond the Solar series where we not only dive into renewable energy, specifically solar, but also how to be the best version of yourself through physical, mental, and spiritual fitness and obviously improvement. So, for today, we have a really cool segment because we're going to dive deeper into finding out if your home or if you as a homeowner actually qualify for solar. Now, this is going to be, very like a brief overview and some of the things that you want to look into if you're thinking about going solar. Now, right now it is the winter time. Typically, whenever anybody does any kind of home improvement project on their home, it's usually something that they want to wait for the spring or they think like they can't do it now. But one of the best things that you can do is definitely take advantage of the winter months and look into solar. I usually like to let families know, like, hey, listen, if you're looking into solar late November, December, January, February, take full advantage of it because solar just doesn't turn on as soon as your system gets installed. It literally takes time in order for your system to get turned on. So that's going to go to our first point to see if your home can qualify for solar is making sure if you as the homeowner understand how solar actually works, what are the process that goes into it, right? It's not just simply like, oh, well, I have X amount of space on my roof or I think my electric bill is $150. It's really understanding how you're going to use the power inside the home and what the expectations are. Usually, whenever we come into looking into solar, it's usually like, hey, I'm looking to either reduce what I'm paying for electricity or swap out my utility bill. And that's one way of looking at it. However, we're going to have to go deeper into it because not every house is the same, just like not every electric consumption is the same. Sometimes you may find out that, hey, like, maybe we can't get you all the power that you need from your roof. So you may still have a small utility bill. And I would still expect you, even if you could get all the power from your roof, to still expect to have a small utility bill for months where maybe you're not getting a lot of production or maybe you just overused what you're historically accustomed to using. So definitely understanding how solar works and what the process is going to be very important and having the right expectations, right? Sometimes I meet families that they tell me, listen, I'm trying to get a budget. I only want to spend X amount of money, based on my needs, and I would explain to them, hey, I can get you maybe 40%, 50%, 60% of your power. And they're totally okay with that. They're looking for just a way to reduce what they're paying for electricity. So definitely before you look into it, make sure that you go in there, one, with an open mind, but two, make sure that you have an expectations of what the process is going to be because when your system gets installed, it doesn't mean that your solar is going to be up and running. Sometimes we have to wait weeks for the city to have an inspector to go by. Sometimes even the city might be behind on materials, right? Where it's like, hey, they need to put an additional electrical meter, right? Like, and it's going to take them some time, or they have to do some kind of upgrades before your system can officially be turned on. So you may have your system installed, but it may not be turned on until the utility company gives you permission to do so. So just make sure that you understand what those steps look like when it comes to the process of going solar. The other point that I would say when it comes to seeing if you qualify is okay, understanding, and this kind of goes with the first point of understanding the process and the steps, but it's basically understanding what your electrical needs are, not just looking at what you're consuming or how much you're paying for electricity. So, right now, a lot of homeowners want to upgrade their homes. It's a perfect opportunity to take advantage of some local and state incentives, make your home much more green, and maybe just change the way that we power our heat or the way that we power our electricity. And that might mean that your electric consumption today is going to differ than what it might be tomorrow. I'll give you a real life example. I was able to help a family most recently convert their home or start the process actually of going solar. And in our conversation, they're thinking about having an electrical vehicle. Now, when they tell me that they're looking about or they're looking to have an electrical vehicle, that's going to change the way that we have the conversation because now we have to think about, well, if you are going to have an electrical vehicle, how do you plan on charging it? Are you planning to charge it at the home? Usually that's the case. Well, that's going to add to your electrical consumption, right? Because you might be using just going to use roundabout numbers. You might be using 10 hours worth of electricity a day just to keep it simple. But now, because you have the electricity, now it's 14, 15 hours. And it's in kilowatt hours, but just to make it very simple, those are things that you want to obviously come into the situation understanding and knowing, and then setting the right expectations, because you might be thinking, I'm going to be able to reduce or eliminate what I'm paying to the utility company, but because now you added an electric vehicle, your consumption has jumped up. So now what your system cannot produce, you're going to go ahead and get the difference from the utility company. So understanding what your electric consumption is super important. Also, like, are you going to make any upgrades to your home? Are there any kind of like energy efficient appliances? Are you going to do like kind of mini splits, heat pumps? A lot of things that families are doing to go green that are going to change the way that you use the electricity, right? Maybe you're going all electric on everything on your home because you're planning to go solar. You just want to make sure that you can anticipate what that additional usage is going to be, right? Have you done an energy audit on your home? Maybe before you go solar, you figure out, okay, well, where can I consume less electricity? Because they work in both ways, right? If you can find a way to use less power and you can optimize what your production is, you're going to maximize what your ROI is, and it's going to just give you much more control, understanding, your peak consumption versus your peak production time of the year, and how to really utilize that. So super important that you understand how your electric usage inside the house is going to be. Are you going to be growing the family? Are things going to be changing? So just be very aware of that, because I can't tell you how many families I speak to that they went solar 2, 3, 4 years ago. Maybe they went solar with a different company, and they are sometimes even mad because they're like, well, solar is not saving me nor money, or I'm getting another bill. And it's like, okay, well, the first question I ask is, did your electric consumption change? Because if it did, that's really going to change and have a different expectations of what solar is going to look like for you, and obviously your family. The third point that I want to jump into is understanding that solar is not the same everywhere. Be mindful, and don't fall for the trap of thinking solar is like a blanket experience for everybody across the country. It's very simple for us to think that way, but different utility companies operate and work in different ways. Some companies have more of a time of use, which means they charge you more during peak hours. Some companies may not, maximize or kind of recognize what, like net metering is, and essentially, um, it can really it can vary your experience with solar. Needed to say that, right? So basically, the way that you might be experiencing solar in California, let's say, may be very different than the way that it is in Massachusetts. Here in the Northeast, specifically where I have the pleasure of working with families, you do still have the option for net metering, which means if you produce 1 unit of electricity, typically, and you can produce that amount, they'll be able to match you for equal value. But that's not the same across the board. The other portion is that it also means that different incentives might work differently in different areas, right? You might have part of the country where you get huge incentives for going solar, and there's a lot of programs. Massachusetts has great programs. If you definitely want to know more about if that's an option for you, please feel free to reach out to us by sending us a message. But basically, different states have different incentives outside of just the federal 30% tax credit. So it's very important for you to understand and see if that's something that would apply to your home, right? So I wanted to keep this short because I can keep going for many, 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 many more reasons to check and see if your home can qualify. But before we look at the physical aspect of your home, let's make sure that we're very well informed, making sure that we understand what solar looks like, looking at many different options, and working with someone that's trusted in the industry, that's trusted in their work, and obviously can be as transparent as possible. And that's what we're here to do and help supplement. So thank you all so much for that. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Take care.